Hi, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to be here with you today. This is a subject that's very near and dear to my heart, and I look forward to collaborating with you a little on this particular subject of understanding skills acquisition and recognition, and how we develop that within a professional development context. My name is Erin Cook. I am from Gardner-Webb University, which is on the western side of North Carolina. And for a little bit of context moving forward, so you kind of know my background, prior to my faculty role, I was a career counselor. So professional development is something that is near and dear to my heart. And I have used that within building a strong program. I'm over the human service program at Gardner-Webb. So as we get started, I'm going to make sure everyone can see everything on my screen. Where we're kind of going with our discussion today is understanding what skills are, what are transferable skills, how they relate to student learning, and how that can be integrated into our classroom strategies and experiences there. So we're going to get started by understanding skills and why they're important and the value of those. Skills are something that can be defined as the ability to do something well. I'm going to minimize you guys only so that I can make sure you're seeing the entire screen. So skills are something that we're gaining through our life experience. For some students, that's going to be paid and unpaid work experience. That might be clubs and organizations, family and life circumstances and things. I work primarily with adult learners, so they're coming generally with a variety of different life experiences, but I have 18-year-olds in my classroom as well. So just know that everyone has skills, everyone has abilities to bring some of these things to the table. So it's not just for a particular population that I'm speaking of. How we attain skills are something that helps us understand the world around us. So for my students, I talk a lot about we see things through the lens of our experience. And one of the first things we need to do is recognize that we have glasses on our face, that we're seeing things through those experiences. And that's something with understanding skills, understanding our strengths and what we bring to the table as professionals gives students a chance to see how those relate to different contexts and situations. So that's what a transferable skill is, something that we're using in one context and then applying it in a different one. An example I give students is, say you are responsible for answering the phone at a front desk. Well, the skill you're using there is communication, and communication is something we all need to use. It's important for everybody. So these are things that can be beneficial in integrating into our classroom experience. So if you're not familiar with this, the National Association of Colleges and Employers, which is called NACE, researches career readiness competencies. And they do this kind of in a general context of talking about all employers, but there's some common themes amongst the skills and data that they're sharing. These are just a few. What's important to think about with this is how are students using these particular skills within the experience that they're gaining in college. That includes what we're learning and discussing within a classroom. And that helps us to better prepare students for the world of work after college. If you would like to know a little bit more about this, I've created a tiny URL to their particular, their latest research and their competencies. These are the 8 full competencies. And this is something that I actually make my students read. We're talking about a variety of different things in the classroom. I'm going to give you those examples in just a minute, but understanding what skills are and how they can be utilized is kind of the first step in what I would say is this process. So all of this kind of together, identification of skills is something that we're learning and we're constantly growing from. And within our class and within just the context of things around us, we're developing those skills. And I feel as though within a higher education setting, we have an opportunity to help students recognize those skills and put into practice some of how those skills can be used so that they're more comfortable and confident as they move forward. An example of this might be something along these lines. So a student might be involved in a community fundraiser. It could be maybe a club or organization as well. The first step is going to be recognizing what skills are used within in their work. That could be communication, delegation, collaboration, etc. That in turn helps students to say, well, I've used these skills in this area, that can be applied in another area. And so that's what I want to help to do to integrate into their classroom experience. And that really will allow us to empower students for their professional success. Um, this approach and kind of the three-step process I'm going to explain in just a second is giving students a chance to have better self-awareness and confidence in their abilities because we're giving them a safe place to practice that. This is the classroom environment gives, just that chance to explore a little bit more and do so where the stakes are lower compared to working in a professional environment. So let's look at how all this kind of comes together. So this is the approach that I've developed for my program. And this is the beauty of being over a program is I can kind of say, this is what we're doing, guys, and give just examples of that to make sure we're all, as our team, we're all on the same page. So I'll go into each of these a little bit more in depth, but it starts with just identification, understanding skills, what are they, why they're important, where they're used. The second is going to be articulation. So that's how we're pulling this as examples from the work that we're assigning, and then getting students to practice that with the promotion of that through their professional development kind of resources that they're taking with them into the world of work. So this starts with identification, okay? This can be understanding what skills are used within a specific discipline of study, understanding what the term transferable skills is and how that relates. That then goes into what skills do students possess? What are their strengths and things that maybe they haven't necessarily thought about? And how can we demonstrate that? And then we're going to connect that to class assignments. So this is an example of a assignment that I give in my introductory class. Identification is this kind of stage, I guess, is something that we tend to do more on introductory level courses. So we're starting to discuss things like what is human services? For those of you who aren't familiar, it's very similar to social work. So as a helping professional, what are skills that are needed in that profession in order to thrive? And we're connecting it through this worksheet. So I'm having them look through what are things that I need to know as things I can do with my major. Then they're starting to look at, well, what are some skills that I have? What are sort of an inventory of those skills? So that's what you see on the left-hand side, where they're kind of checking off and thinking through, well, yeah, I can do that. I can do that. Okay. What I find most from my students is they're saying, I didn't realize that was a skill, or I didn't connect the dots that this was something that I could actually use or would be important for me to promote. And so it's always fun to me to kind of hear in students' reflections on this, what are they gaining out of this inventory? On the right-hand side, you'll see where in that same worksheet, we're taking kind of your top 10 list of skills that you would say, these are the things that I'm most strong in. And we're helping to provide examples of where that skill has been used. So an easy one, especially for my students because they're mainly online, I talk about the importance of time management, and time management being a skill that they use all the time with keeping up with their work. So that could be a skill that they're using, and then they're going to think about some examples of how they can show that. We're creating then statements of how that skill has been used. And those particular things we come back to at the end of their program because we use those to develop their resume and to practice interviewing, those types of things. But it first has to start with knowing what skills we have and identifying those so that we can then articulate those later. Speaking of articulation, that's kind of our next step. So we're looking for ways in which we can practice skills being utilized and build that into a classroom environment. Again, this is so that students can practice this and that they're becoming more comfortable and confident with understanding how to master those skill sets. There's a couple of examples with that. One is easily with discussion boards or journals. It could be discussions in your classroom where it might be a question like, tell me about a time when, or what has your experience told you about X, Y, or Z? And so they're integrating what they know from life experiences into how they're relating to the material that we're covering. Another example of this is case studies. So case studies, we have a standardized format and way in which we go about case studies within the program. So they have about, I'd say at least a dozen times where they're practicing this specific style where we're going over a case. The case is going to be specific to the course and what's being discussed in that. For instance, what's being talked about in a family kind of dynamics course is going to be different than a substance use and abuse course. So in the case, we're looking at how we develop a plan, what are things that they're seeing as resources, and they're asked with each case, identify 3 skills that you would use in connecting to this case. And that's going to be unique to each student because what they bring to the table is different and personal. That's something that they can say, I possess this skill. Here's what our case study review looks like, at least a couple snippets of it. A couple of things to point out here. One, we always share with students the goal of why they're doing this work. I find that that's helpful to get buy-in, I guess, for students to know why it's important. You'll next see that we're kind of saying with each assignment, what are the skills that you're going to be using to complete this assignment? So we're looping back to a student. These are the things that you're going to be practicing through the work that we're assigning. And so it's helping them to integrate the recognition of their skills through all of the assignments that we're building. And then the last thing, it says item 7, this is the last item on their case study where we're saying in a paragraph each, identify 3 professional skills you would use in this case and how it relates to the specific case. So that might be active listening, that might be delegation or resource development. There's a lot of different things that can be considered, but we're tying it back to what are the skills that are needed for the profession? What are things that employers are looking for? And giving them a chance to practice how they articulate that so that it becomes a little less scary. I don't know if you have heard this from students before, but I hear a lot of, the tell me about yourself or these types of questions that interviewers ask, it scares them. It's something they're not used to or are not comfortable talking about. And these types of experiences in the classroom give them the opportunity just to grow more accustomed to it and to recognize what they do bring to the table. There's some confidence that comes with that. So the last stage in this process is really just promotion. So we're practicing this, we recognize our skills, we know how to talk about them. Let's now put this in a professional context and give opportunities to kind of showcase that. Most of this is something that I'm doing with them in their capstone course, but we're developing a resume. We're showcasing through that resume their skills. They're practicing a cover letter. They're developing a portfolio. They're practicing interviews. If you're not familiar with Big Interview, it's a online platform where they can record themselves and watch their videos back so that they can kind of see how they're doing with those things. And we're doing some STAR behavioral examples. So let me show you what that looks like in case you're not familiar with the STAR method. It allows someone to give context to maybe an example. So this goes back to that tell me about a time when type of question, where they're describing a situation, tasks, actions, and results. This is a prime example of a way for students to articulate their skills. So they can, through an example, explain some of these particular things. I have them practice this with their interviews, and then I have this built into their portfolio as well, so that they can go ahead and showcase. These are a few examples of some things that I've learned in that particular context. So overall, in kind of integrating understanding of skills, what skills are being used in the classroom, all of these things enable students to recognize their skills and strengths better. And it gives us an opportunity of bridging the classroom experience and the college experience with what they're going to be better understanding and learning through their experiences in the professional world. I have heard from, I guess I should go back. We've been integrating this into our program for the last 5 years. So I've had a little bit of time to see how this is benefiting students. And it really just allows students to feel so much more comfortable going into the workforce because they feel more prepared through the work that they're doing and practicing these particular types of skills, because it is a skill to recognize your skills. So these are some things that have been really working well for us, and that's why I was grateful for the opportunity to share that a little bit today. So I have just a little bit of time. If there are questions or things that I can better assist with in just understanding this process and things a little bit more.
Thank you so much, Erin. Do we have any questions?
Hi, this is Chansub. First of all, thank you so much, Erin. Apparently, there are many overlapping areas between your presentation and what Jeremy and I are going to present very soon. So
Sorry.
it is exciting. No. It is exciting. So, yeah, so some of the key ideas like transferable skills and other career planning ideas are shared, which is great. One quick question at this point. One of the last slides you mentioned the creating the portfolio,
Mhm.
kind of archiving students' skills that they developed, I believe, throughout their college time. Could you say a bit more about how does that work? So when the first year students enter the college, your institution or at least your department give them a venue in which they archive kind of series of the transferable skills they developed from the first year to second and third and fourth year. So would you tell me a bit more about how does it work, the portfolio idea?
Mhm. So in their introductory class, there are areas that we're identifying as this is something we're going to be pulling into another class. And so we have kind of a cloud-based format where we ask students to save. They can save everything there if they'd like, but very specifically, these are assignments that will relate to your future work. And so I'm asking them to kind of keep tabs on that. This allows us to give them some reflection and some opportunities just to kind of expand on the work that they've done. For instance, one of the other things that they do with their case studies is I have them pull all of the resources that they've developed through the different case studies that they've done, and we do a toolkit at the end too. So the kind of cloud-based it's with OneDrive place that we house some of these things will give students a chance to have a holding ground for when we get to their capstone so that they aren't having to search too much through what they've done in the past, because the portfolio is going to allow us to say, well, here's it's sort of like a lookbook, I guess, an online lookbook where we're saying, here's my resume, here's some examples of some of the work that I've done. Here's a few other things that I can showcase, such as awards, etc. And they can use that either as part of an employment process or something maybe for promotions and things as well. It's a helpful kind of way to pull together all of the things that we've been developing through the program. The other thing that we do at the intro of the program is just kind of talk about, here are the things that you're going to be doing. It's kind of an intentional look at kind of a 30,000-foot view of their program. So I can say, these are the things we're going to be learning throughout your work. Here's how it all ties together, and here's how we sum it up at the end. So it helps, especially for a student who is going into this type of work, that they understand what they're getting out of it at the end from that launching pad.
Mhm. Thank you.